Sorry about that. Good afternoon. Welcome to the October 10th, 2023 Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals. Ms. Cobb, would you please call roll?
Sure. Dominic Epps. Richard Exlick.
Here.
Shantae Hall.
Here.
Corey Cornegay.
Here.
Melissa Venable.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. And are there any corrections to the previous BZA minutes? If not, may I have a motion
So moved to approve the minutes.
and a second?
Second.
Terrific. Just by voice vote, does everyone, are these approved?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The minutes from the last meeting are approved with a motion for Mr. Eslick and a second for Mr. Carnegie. Our first agenda item this afternoon is BZA 28-2023 for 330 Culloden Street, submitted by BC Branch on behalf of Hastings and Sons. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Sure. Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 28-2023. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 2 feet, the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2 feet, the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 19 feet, the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 63%. The property is identified as tax map 34G24, parentheses 6, parentheses 2, asterisk 8A, addressed as 330 Culloden Street, zoning classification, residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 2 feet, the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2 feet, the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 19 feet, the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 63%. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon, board members, Madam Chair, Zoning Administrator, visitors, and guests. My name is Melvion Knight. I'm the Assistant Zoning Administrator for the City of Suffolk. The item I will be presenting today is BZA 28-2023 for 330 Culloden Street. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises, on behalf of the property owner, Hastings and Sons LLC, is requesting a variance request from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 2 feet, the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2 feet, the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 19 feet, the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 63%. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 34G24, parentheses 6, 2, asterisk 8A. The property located at 330 Culloden Street is in the Suffolk, Virginia area, Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification, residential medium. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant states that the RM zoning district setbacks will not allow for the development of a proposed 20-foot wide by 36 long single-family dwelling with covered porch at the location of 330 Culloden Street. The dimensional requirements for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires a land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a minimum lot width of 80 feet when measured at the front setback line. The property calculates to 1,750 square feet in land area, which declares the property to be a non-conforming lot when compared to the minimum requirements of the RM zoning district. According to the exhibits provided, the property will not support a 20-foot wide dwelling. Under Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3 of the Unified Development Ordinance, it allows for the zoning administrator to grant up to a 30% reduction on the front, side, and rear yard setbacks on substandard lots. Unfortunately, the setbacks exceed the 30% allowance, which can be granted by the zoning administrator for the development of the site. Staff consulted with departments for feedback from traffic engineering, which did not provide any comments. However, there were concerns for potential drainage challenges on the site from the Public Works Engineering Division. According to the RM zoning standards, staff had the time to review those standards, and the final recommendation would be approval of the request as shown in the staff report. The property owner also included a exhibit which showed the design of the proposed home on the site. And we also took the time to highlight the areas where the setbacks would be on the property, which is shown in yellow here on the screen. Staff, again, recommends approval of this request, and we are available for any questions that the board may have. Also, the applicant is present for this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Knight as she's at the podium? No? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We will now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Hey, Brennan Branch, Suffolk, Virginia, 1500 Copeland Road. I'm here. I think the site plans are backwards. That was for 328. I'm on the corner. I can't see that right. Is that right?
You're
there?
330.
Yes, that's us. So we had done one block up Spruce Street in Van Buren several months back, and this is 2 feet on the corner, and the other one that we had previously done was 6 inches. So just throwing that out for everybody. So be happy to answer anything. If anybody's got any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition? Sir, is there anything you would like to add in favor of the application? That'll close this public hearing. Are there any questions, comments, or a motion? I will note, since both of these are back-to-back, 330 and 328 Culloden Street, if you combine the two sites, they're each 1,750 square feet, so together they're 3,510 square feet, which is about the same as the adjacent property, either behind or next to the site. They are awfully small, I will say.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, regardless of who owns what and how you would combine them or how you would work to combine them, I'm having a problem too with the size of the lots.
So I have the corner lot under contract, and Mr. LeMay has the other one under contract. That's kind of how we ended up here with this.
Right.
So,
But they are under contract, and we will call you back up. They are both under contract. They're not owned, obviously. But that's for you all to work out. That's unfortunately, the issue today is accepting 2-foot side yard setbacks, but more importantly, I think, is the amount of impervious area on that corner, and if that would cause an issue with stormwater management. And again, the walls would have to be fire rated on these homes. Are there any other comments or questions?
I'm going to make a motion to deny the request.
I'll second the motion for denial. We have a motion and a second to deny the request. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Cobb, would you take a vote? And this is a vote to deny the request. So if we vote yes, that's yes for denial.
Correct.
Okay.
Dominic Epps, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shantae Hall,
Yes.
Corey Cornegay,
No.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-1.
Sorry about that. Hopefully we can work something out moving forward on that property. Our next item is BZA 29-2023, 328 Culloden Street, from Foundations on behalf of Cody Hastings. Ms. Cobb, would you please read the caption?
The applicant, Firm Foundations, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2 feet, the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 19 feet, the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 63%. The property is identified as tax map 34G 24 parentheses 6 parentheses 2 asterisk 8, addressed as 328 Culloden Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2 feet, the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 19 feet, the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 63%. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Assistant Zoning Administrator Melvion Knight.
Good afternoon again. The item I'll be presenting to the board is BZA 29-2023. The applicant, Firm Foundations, on the behalf of the property owner, Cody Hastings, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, dimensional standards to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2 feet, the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 19 feet, the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to increase the impervious coverage from 40% to 63%. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 34G 24 parentheses 6 2 asterisk 8. The location of the property is 328 Culloden Street, Suffolk, Virginia. Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification RM. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a public notice sign was posted pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant states that the RM zoning district setbacks will not allow for development of a proposed 20-foot wide by 36 long single-family dwelling with a covered porch located at 328 Culloden Street. The dimensional standards requirements for RM lot requires for land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a minimum lot width of 80 feet when measured at the front setback line. This property calculates to 1,750 square feet in land area, which is non-conforming when compared to the minimum standards of the RM zoning district. According to the exhibits provided, the property will not support a 20-foot wide dwelling, and under Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3, of the Unified Development Ordinance, the zoning administrator is allowed to grant up to a 30% reduction to the front, side, and rear setbacks on a substandard lot. Unfortunately, the reductions exceed the 30% allowance of the zoning administrator, the administrative request. The departments within Public Works, Traffic Engineering, and Public Works Engineering were both contacted for comments and concerns regarding the conditions on the site. The Public Works Engineering Division responded back with drainage issues or drainage concerns for post-site development. The RM zoning district will not support construction of the single-family dwelling on the substandard lot. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request. Again, same as the last application, the applicant presented a model home that was going to be proposed for the location. We did contact various departments, traffic engineering and engineering division, public works engineering, provided comments, but the engineering division stated that they had concerns with the drainage pattern. That concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing. The same standards apply, 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon, Board. Gilbert LeMay, residential and commercial contractor here in Suffolk. I live over on Liberty Springs, just down the road. Like BC Branch, I was looking to try to find a lot that we can find some affordable housing in the city and just trying to clean things up a little bit. It was under my understanding that if it had an original address for Nansemond County, that it was still a buildable lot. Is that not true?
We can answer questions once the public hearing is closed. Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
So I guess I'm kind of torn because less than one block, the next block up on Van Buren and Spruce, several months ago, we did 2.5 feet on one side, corner lot exactly like the one before, corner lot 2.5 feet on one side and 6 inches on the corner. We've got a better situation here, and we're now getting denied. So.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anything you'd like to add, sir? That'll close this public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments?
Now, based on the previous application, I'm going to make a motion to deny this request also.
We have a motion for denial. Do we have a second of the motion? I will second the motion, but I will also add, with a motion and a second on the table, that I think I've made it pretty clear that I'm not real excited about anything that comes before us that's under 5 feet as a side yard setback. But more importantly, in this case, we have some concerns in regard to stormwater management, and with all the issues that we've heard of as of late with stormwater and flooding and things like that, I think adding this much impervious area to these very small lots could be problematic. But even more importantly is, I think, yes, affordable housing is super important, and we've seen quite a bit over the last couple of years being built in downtown Suffolk, but I don't want to jeopardize, you all both build some really nice looking product, and we're excited to see things come into downtown Suffolk, but I still think there needs to be some minimums in place. And again, these lots, I'll reiterate, as Ms. Knight had mentioned, they're 1,750 square feet. They are very small. Together, they are only 3,510 square feet. So they may be addressed as lots, but they're not addressed as, nothing that the city has says they are buildable lots to a specific standard. That's why you're here today. So they're not, because of their size, they aren't actually buildable lots per the ordinance or the code. So I think there's just a threshold for me of the size of a lot to be built on. Being that this is the same owner, he certainly could combine the lots and sell them to one of you to create something that's a little bit more suitable with a little bit more area for children to play within the yard. So that is why I'm having a hard time with this and the size of these lots in particular. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I'd like to add a comment if I could. I'm not saying that I would be making a motion, a different motion,
Bless you.
but I'm also influenced by the fact that these two lots are adjacent to each other, and that at least that would afford an opportunity to combine them. I do realize it's one seller and it's two different buyers, but again, they're under contract and have not been purchased, and All of those things have gone into my motion to deny.
If there's nothing additional, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. Ms. Cobb?
Dominic Epps, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shantae Hall,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie,
No.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-1.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your efforts this afternoon. We'll move on to BZA 30-2023 on 6212 College Drive, application by John Romanello on behalf of Chick-fil-A, Inc. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption? Sorry.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 30-2023. The applicant, John Romanello, on behalf of Chick-fil-A Incorporated, is requesting a variance to reduce the required drive aisle width from 12 feet to 9 feet for construction of a new drive-through lane. The property is identified as tax map 6*12D*5A, addressed as 6212 College Drive, zoning classification, general commercial B2. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required drive aisle width from 12 feet to 9 feet for construction of a new drive-through lane. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation read by Melvion Knight.
Good afternoon. I'll be presenting BZA 30-2023. The applicant, John Romanello, on behalf of Chick-fil-A Inc., is requesting a variance request from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 6, Section 31-606, parentheses A, parentheses 10C, drive-through facilities to reduce the required drive aisle width from 12 feet to 9 feet for the construction of a new drive aisle lane. The property is identified as tax map 6/12D*5A and parcel number 306002812, located at 6212 College Drive, Suffolk, Virginia, Nansemond voting borough, zoning classification B2. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant is requesting a variance to install a multi-lane drive-through around the existing Chick-fil-A restaurant. According to the application, the expansion of the double drive-through will aid in efficiency of the current services offered to patrons. The exhibit submitted conflict with the Unified Development Ordinance, Section 31-606, parentheses A, parentheses 10C, which quotes, "With stacking lanes shall have a minimum width of 12 feet. The applicant's proposal of the multi-lane drive-through measures 9 feet per lane with a 3-foot separating median. The proposed concept appears to aid in the traffic flow and mirrors many Chick-fil-A restaurant models. Although the addition of the proposed drive-through lane produces some changes to the existing parking design by reducing the number of parking spaces on site, the proposed layout still allows for stalls to be placed throughout the drive aisle and 2 additional spaces adjacent to College Drive. This location currently has an overflow parking area to the east of the building, which is identified as parcel 9A, to remedy the conflicts created under Section 31-606, parentheses A, parentheses 10, parentheses A. If the drive-through aisle was widened to a width greater than what is proposed by the conceptual plan, it would impact the traffic flow by reducing the drive aisle width to less than 12 on the outside drive-through lane. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request. The illustration that's shown here, I took the time to highlight the areas of impact. This model here shows a enlarged version of the area of where they're proposing to extend the drive-through along the rear of the property. And the area that's shown here in yellow would be the area where the 9-foot reduction would happen. It's going to happen along the wall of the Chick-fil-A. and it's going to take out some of the curb and walkway along the rear, almost making it flush with the building, but still providing the 9 and 9 on each drive aisle so that they can continue. And then as it flows around to the pickup window, it would extend back to 9 feet, between 9 to 10 feet along the area there. But with the overflow parking that's available on the adjacent lot, we feel comfortable with recommending approval from the city. I'm available for any questions, and we also have the applicant available that will be here to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. We will now open our public hearing if there's no questions for Ms. Knight. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application? Here to speak in favor of the application?
In favor, yes. My name
Okay.
is Stuart Sheffield, 5701 Monumental Avenue in Richmond. We're the owner's engineer, so representing Chick-fil-A here as the applicant. And basically, I'll be here for questions and can then provide any answers as needed. But
So just to be
appreciate the
clear, you're
time.
representing the owner of the site and you are the engineering firm? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak on this application? Seeing none, that'll close our public hearing for this item. Do we have any questions or comments? Sir,
What's the size of the parking of it? I mean, going around it now, because it's already tight already.
no, I'm glad you brought that up.
It's like real tight already, and then it's easily to get hit.
So, sir, if you don't mind coming up, I agree. I mean, I'm over in that direction quite a bit, especially at lunchtime, and it is coming in off of, is that College Drive there? Oh, I'm sorry, Burbridge Drive. It stacks out, your Chick-fil-A's drive-through, and traffic actually stacks out into Burbridge Drive often. So is there any thought or consideration to even moving the entrance to the other side of the building?
It's a good
So
question.
you could wrap around the building
Yep, so
itself?
that's a good question. I think right now, the intent and how they're operating with stores across their footprint is, right now, this one has only a one-lane drive-through. It spreads into two for maybe 50% of it. And so the intention of our initial application is to make that 2 lanes, so to bring more of that stacking on site. And to keep people in the drive-through. And to your point on how tight that site is, that's one of the reasons we are requesting this variance on the drive-through width specifically. So we're trying to still give people room to maneuver around the site effectively.
Right here, coming around, you see where that Honda is, right there?
Yes.
When you see where that Honda is, we come around that Honda just to get into that Chick-fil-A line. So
Exactly.
if you double stacking, there is no way for you to come around to
Yep.
get into there. And then if you're coming from the other side, the sub Jersey Mike's is right there to the right. There's no way for you to come around from Jersey Mike's side to get around there also.
Yep, so with this modification, so we also have the site plan in place, and we've removed the trash enclosures and as well as the angled parking that's there and existing today. So when you drive around there today, there's parking there. So we're removing those to give you more room at the entrance, so that when you have more room, or when you enter the site, you have more room to traverse that. So in
Okay,
the
so that way,
proposed conditions.
all of that's gonna be, all that's
Exactly.
right there is be gone and then
On the
come
right
around.
side, yes, sir.
Okay.
So this is really to pull more of the off-site traffic on-site to cause less of an issue. And I know it's just a short period of time every day, probably right at lunch and right at dinner, but it does seem a bit dangerous, especially with the curve on Burbridge Drive. And then, I mean, I've actually made U-turns here if I wanted to go over to the sushi place or the other, just because I don't want to get into that traffic jam that's actually out on Burbridge Drive. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, as Chick-fil-A moves forward, are they looking at potentially slightly larger sites? Because I know that you typically have a prototype, but it seems like your prototype, no matter where I travel, it's busy and there's cars and it's hard to manipulate. And it seems like maybe it just needs to grow by a tenth of an acre.
Yep. Yep. I'd even say an acre in some cases. But I agree with you, and I think the new stores, as you see new ones coming online, they're certainly going to be looking at larger lots. We do want to honor the kind of existing communities and the places that they've built and stay in the stores as much as we can continue to use those. And so this is an effort to do what we can with the land that's available to us.
So I'll ask one last question. I think I see a crosswalk that would come across that drive aisle that accesses the other stores as well as Chick-fil-A. Is that going to be extended for safety, or will there be any like flashing pedestrian lights or anything else like that?
So if you're, it sounds like most of you are familiar with the Chick-fil-A's, but they usually install pedestrian warning signs with those as well. So you'll have the striped crosswalk on the pavement, as well as signs in those islands and basically at points that are clear to drivers navigating the site.
So that's not just on the site, but I'm asking for off the site as well, where you're
Off the
parking, where you have your off-site parking?
Gotcha. So no proposed changes to what's out there today. So we're tying this crosswalk into the existing crosswalk. It's not quite shown on, let's see. Well, it is on the zoomed out version. There's a crosswalk.
Yeah, you see the existing, but there'll be no lights or signage or anything that goes in that location where people are,
Not at this time.
Right, because now you're gonna be parking in the back.
right?
And then on the other side, you got another drive-through right on the other side where you putting this drive-through at.
Yeah.
Drive-through to the sub place, and then they park right there on that little.
Yeah, so we probably understand how this site operates better than, because most of us live on that side of town, and
Yeah.
if you have kids, you go to Chick-fil-A, right? I mean, that's just
And we-
part
and
of what
see
we
each other
stamp
all-
when we had
see
children.
each other there.
Yeah, that's right.
So-
So right now, and again, I understand you're trying to improve the circumstance, but people that want to go to Chick-fil-A park everywhere to get into Chick-fil-A, specifically over by the Jersey Mike's drive-through. So I feel like something that, and I think you're saying this too, Mr. Carnegie, is accommodating people walking into the site, so off the site, because you just said you're leasing space from off-site, and then any of the other parallel spaces that are going to be adjacent to the site, there needs to be pretty clear demarcations of how those people are going to walk in and making sure cars are slowing down for pedestrians. Because right now, for the front entry of Chick-fil-A, over by where you have the two yellow lanes, kind of on the top side of Chick-fil-A, right now, that gets hairy, to say the least, currently. And then cars get backed up, and people get mad that they have to wait to get their food, and it's hostile. So anything off-site that you can do for pedestrian demarcation and signage would be really very helpful. And I do appreciate that you're working to make it better now, but it would be even better if the site could just be bigger. But it's existing, so I understand.
Well, it seems like to me that the additional lane would certainly help with the traffic situation.
Yeah.
It'll help with the traffic situation. The only thing it is you got to worry about is the pedestrians walking from their cars going into Chick-fil-A, because the way y'all have it now, you're only helping one set of people. You're not helping the other set of people where you putting the parking in the back. Because the side parking, like where you park it on the side, those people with the DoorDash and everything, they just shoot straight over there. And even if so, you getting rid of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're getting rid of like 8 parking spaces.
I think since COVID, what Chick-fil-A is seeing is the number of people running through the drive-throughs compared to what they're dine-in traffic has completely shifted. That's one of the reasons that you see the retrofits and trying to get the 2 lanes in. So what you'll see with an operator and with a store like this is 2 lanes is more in line with how Chick-fil-A wants to operate their stores. And so there may be other changes that I can't speak to as an engineer, but the operator in the store will be making, because their 2 lanes are more in line with how they're going to operate the rest of their stores in their country. So there may be other changes that you see outside of just these 2 lanes here. But
I have no problem with it, but the only problem I have with it is just the safety for the people coming into this thing. Because my understanding he'll get out the car and quit, and he'll go up there, but he'll easily get hit also. So you got a lot of children that's walking from the neighborhoods or coming from everywhere or parking, their parents park somewhere else, and then they come straight on in there.
Mhm.
And they could easily get hit that way. But, I mean, that's my only concern is that.
So, Ms. Cobb, you're welcome to have a seat.
Thank you very much.
Can we make a motion, I mean, I think this is certainly an improvement. Could we make a motion for approval with a caveat that there would be additional pedestrian signs, specifically because they've noted that the parking is off-site? So there'll be not only additional pedestrian signs, but additional pedestrian crosswalks off-site from their leased parking area to the,
We can include that in site plan review.
okay. Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable, because even where your off-site parking is at, sir, they use that little back street back there to go over to the sushi spot, they go to Jersey Mike's, everybody goes right over there. So that where your off-site parking is already heavy right there also.
So, Mr. Carnegie, where they were shown, there's the one, if you go further north on the plan, or plan north, I should say, with that highlighted area, kind of by that stop sign, if there was a second pedestrian crosswalk in that area with some signage, do you think that would be appropriate or helpful?
Yeah, but where that stop sign is, that's where we come in at.
Yes.
Remember, like, where I
Yes.
saw you at?
Yes.
That's where we was at.
Yes.
So everybody's coming in right there where that stop sign is at. So when you coming off that, all back there, you coming around that right there. So the parking, the signage should be down here toward the left. Go on, the other way. Go, keep on, and then go up. Keep on up. It
Yeah,
need to be
there
right
as
around
well.
there. It need
Right.
to be somewhere back that way. They come over there. Because if you put it back over that other way, now you're gonna cause a real backup with people coming into there. Because you're gonna
Well, I think
almost,
where you were highlighting, that's right across by where the Demochi and Jersey Mike's is.
Yeah, because where
Right.
this stop sign is, that takes you, that's the side street, even if you
So-
want to leave from Chipotle and Jersey Mike's. But they have parking that's like right here behind it. That's where
Right.
their off-site parking is.
Yeah,
So are you
the,
saying coming from this way going straight across or coming from the stop sign?
because if you come
Where
from
they
the
will-
stop sign,
Can you see where the stop sign is?
the
But if you
stop
go to
sign
the right of that stop sign,
right
that's
is where that
parking.
parking is as well.
Right. So would you say,
And it looks like they do have some existing crosswalks there, but I would suggest that we need more than just the crosswalks, some signage or flashing lights. Because I mean, we've all seen people flying through there, especially when they're
Yeah.
irritated that they've been backed up, and now they just want to get to where they're going. So I think if we made a motion to just request additional signage and pedestrian crossing assistance, I think it would be in multiple locations, because this is, this and this access the big lot that sits here. So I'll go ahead and make a motion for approval with additional pedestrian connectivity, signage, or pedestrian assistance from the off-site parking to the Chick-fil-A site itself. Is that reasonable?
second.
Thank you, Mr. Carnegie. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? If you would please call for a vote.
Dominic Epps, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall,
yes?
Corey Carnegie,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. We'll move to the last item, BZA 31, 2023, 2047 Herons Point Lane. Applicant Benjamin Charlie. Ms. Cobb, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 31-2023. The applicant, Benjamin Charlie, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 15 feet for a 6-foot privacy fence. The property is identified as tax map 34K*26, addressed as 2047 Herons Point Lane, zoning classification, rural residential district. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 15 feet for a 6-foot privacy fence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Melvion Knight, Assisting Zoning Administrator.
The item being presented to the board today is BZA 31-2023. The applicant, Benjamin Charlie, property owner, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, parentheses C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses J, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the installation of a 6-foot fence. The property is identified as tax map 34K, asterisk 26, parcel 254002366, located at 2047 Herons Point Lane, Suffolk, Virginia, Holy Neck Voting Borough, zoning classification RR, rural residential. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant, Benjamin Charlie, resides at 2047 Herons Point Lane, identified as Lot 26 within the subdivision of Herons Point Phase 2. The subdivision, that should have been a correction. This is one of our newly platted subdivisions here in the city of Suffolk. The applicant submitted a request to the Division of Community Development to install a 6-foot fence on a side adjacent to Herons Lane, White Herons Lane, following the issuance of a notice of violation for erecting a 6-foot fence without obtaining proper permits. Per our discussion with the applicant, he expressed some challenges when applying for the proposed barrier or fencing required for the existing in-ground pool. The Virginia Uniform statewide building code requires for pool permits to accompany building permits for a fence. This will conform with the requirements of those regulations, which requires a minimum height of 4 foot or 48 inches, 48-inch tall barrier fence to protect the in-ground pool. The intent of the existing 6-foot privacy fence would act as a pool barrier along the property boundary, which is adjacent to the city's right-of-way. According to Section 31-407, parentheses B, parentheses 10, it states that a fence or wall more than 6 feet in height may be located in any required yard or rear yard other than a yard adjacent to a street. It goes on to say that the fence that is erected along a street or city right-of-way shall not be more than 50% and shall not exceed a height of 4 feet. The installation of the 6-foot fence adjacent to the street will not comply with the regulations of this ordinance unless the structure meets the 25-foot setback as expressed on the survey. After staff analysis, we saw that the installation of a 4-foot fence would comply with our requirements of the 4-foot, 50% open fence requirement along White Herons Lane. And it would comply with the section of 31-407, parentheses B, of the Unified Development Ordinance. If the property owner decided to erect a 6-foot fence, he would have to move the fence back to the area that's highlighted in yellow, which shows that where the 25-foot setback is along Herons Point Lane. Therefore, staff recommends denial of this request. And the applicant is also here for questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Any questions for Ms. Knight while she's at the podium? Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Yes, sir.
Like she said, I'm sorry.
Could you state your name?
My name is Benjamin Charlie.
Okay, thank
I
you,
live
sir.
at 2047 Herons Point Lane. When we first moved here to Suffolk, we moved from Virginia Beach. And like I was stating, when we first got the pool, all this stuff should be in the package. But when we first got the house, we actually did put a 4-foot fence up. we came down and the contractor was supposed to come and do the permit. I stated I was going to get a pool when I first got the fence. And they brought that situation up about this board meeting then. And I was like, well, I think we should be okay, you know. So my wife, we decided to go ahead and put the pool in, put the 4-foot fence in. So we did that. Once we got the pool and the pool stuff started to work out well, we said, hey, let's go ahead and put the 6-foot fence up. So we put up a 6-foot fence. The fence didn't look that great, so we wound up putting another 6-foot fence up. Yes, 3 fences in the last 2 years. So I understand, unfortunately for us, the contractor did not come down here and get the permit to put the fence up, and then I would have known then that it was an issue. But we did not know. And if we were to put that fence back, take that fence back down and move it back again, it really would be a financial burden upon us. The fence itself is not in the line of sight of driving or anything of that sort. So I'm just asking if we could have that done. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. If there's anything you'd like to add, you have plenty of time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Sir, is there anything before you sit down, anything you would like to add?
No, but my neighbors did write some things.
Okay. I will have a question. We're going to close the public hearing, seeing that there's no other comments. I do have a question for you for something you had stated. You said you knew, and actually in one of the emails here, your wife had noted that you knew that that exterior line along the roadway had to be 4 feet.
Did put the 4-foot.
Right, so you, go ahead.
Yeah. So we knew about the 4-foot fence before the pool, but I was advised that once we got a pool, we could get 6 feet. So that's how all this came to fruition.
Right, so the 6-foot would have been at the 25-foot setback line, and the 4 feet could be closer.
We didn't know all of that. We just thought it would replace the 4-foot fence at the same location.
Right,
So that's where we got messed up.
That's basically what they had, the 4-foot fence on the 15-foot setback or 25,
Right.
whatever.
right,
it is.
right.
And so we just told the guys that they lift that up and put the
And put the
6
6-foot.
foot. That's what we did, twice, 3 times.
So the only, if it's approved, then you leave it as it is. If it were denied, it's just that one linear edge along, I can't see the roadway from here.
White herring.
Right, yeah, that would have to be shift back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the,
I already know what they're going through.
yeah,
I already-
we've had a couple
I mean,
cases.
like me personally,
Mm-hmm,
know exactly what they're going through, because that's the reason why I didn't do my pool, because of what they're going through.
the confusion outside with contractors and whatnot.
Because of the height wise, if you keep it at the 4 feet height, you gotta go in and around the pool, you gotta put another barrier
Right.
around the pool, and that's through the city. If it's not the 6 foot, if the 6-foot fence is up there, they don't have to go out to go purchase
Yeah.
the other fence to go around the pool.
We don't have any graphics that show the pool, the additions that they've made. Right, okay. Do you have any other questions for Mr. and Mrs. Charlie? You can have a seat, thank you so much. We have a motion, questions, comments?
I'm a motion for approval because I personally know some of the people that's on their list. I don't know them per
Right.
se, but me looking at the names and stuff like that,
Yeah,
I know exactly where they at, because now me looking at the names, y'all have kids that go over there to that same pool also. So I seen their backyard like visually from even going off some of these names personally. So I'm gonna say I approve it for them.
Do we have a motion for approval? Do we have a second of that motion?
I was second it.
Motion and a second? Any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make a
Conversation?
comment. You know, the last one that we ran into, the people suffered from us not having a 5-member board, and we delayed, and we finally approved that. I think the difference here is they didn't have a pool, you've got a pool, and the way I understand this is if we turn this down, then you've got to put another fence within a fence.
Right.
And so.
Or they can shift the fence to the edge of the yellow line.
Would that
Then,
affect?
that
but then
encroach
that may affect the way the pool
That's
is
what I was
because
wondering if
because you're gonna have the
there's-
concrete around there and everything like that.
Is the concrete real close to that edge there? Okay. I'm going to interrupt everybody, and I apologize. Is there a better, different way to do this in the city of Suffolk? Because it seems like it's confusing at best for homeowners to submit these applications or for fencing companies to abide by what the rules are supposed to be.
The problem is that when they don't, a lot of them won't pull the permit, and then they don't know until we post a stop work order or something. It is online. We do have some of this information online, but people aren't looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack when you're.
Then another thing is a lot of pool companies,
They're separate.
right, they're separate. And then a lot of pool companies, they'll make the homeowner go get the permits instead of them going to get the permits. And then you got to deal
Yeah.
with that point. And then you got to deal with the actual fence company also doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, you can even see from some of the dialogue that you've submitted and the messaging that you were asking, you were trying, what do I need to do? Do I need to provide a survey? And the answer was not very clear that you got back. So it's a frustrating process, surely, and you all know, I don't like fences, but in this case, I absolutely can sympathize with your situation.
Mr. Charlie, I have a question, if you don't mind, and your answer will have nothing to do with how I vote.
Did you want to go swimming?
Did the contractor, did he indicate to you that he was getting the building permit, or did he want you to get the building permit? I'm just
Which one,
curious.
the pool contractor or the fence contractor?
You take your pick.
Okay, the pool contractor did all the legwork. That was AGN Pools. He did all the legwork. The fence contractor, when I put up the 4-foot fence, he said he was gonna get the permit.
But he didn't.
He,
Okay.
he said he did, but
Yeah.
from all the investigation, when I came down here and I spoke with the ladies in there was no permit. I said, Lord have mercy. And it just went downhill from there.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to tell you where our frustration comes from, and that is we wish that we could make some type of announcement or get the word spread that people have got to get building permits. And again, I'm not preaching that your circumstances are a little bit different. Hopefully, you can tell which way I'm leaning at this point, which would be in your favor. But we're going to keep having these things. So tell your friends, spread the word. If they're going to do anything, they better get a building permit, because at some point, we're going to run out of patience. And I will tell you, my vote is also influenced by the fact that there is a pool. The last one that we struggled through did not have a pool, and I think that makes the difference for me, so.
I'm gonna back him up on that, because if you didn't have a pool, we'll have a different conversation right now. But because of this, that's the reason why we're laying towards this. And our other suggestion is, you may need to go, you paid money to get to where you are right now, so I would try to go after whoever put your fence up and do it, maybe.
We've been having dialogue with him as well. Because I shouldn't have had to pay no $551 or.
That would be the least. So, anyway, our moment of making a decision, I think, has come.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. If you would please call for the vote.
Dominic Epps, Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Shante Hall,
Yes.
Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
Vote carries 4-0.
Congratulations. We're sorry for the frustrations, but we'd like to come over and go swimming. That concludes our hearing this afternoon. Thank you so much. Do we have additional agenda items or anything else we need to discuss today? We have good news. We'll be here again next month,
Okay.
maybe. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.